What's up? You ever wanted to play a game about going to the store and buying milk? I don't care about your answer. We are doing it anyways. Milk inside a bag of milk inside a bag of milk. Wow, try saying that 10 times fast. Is genuinely amazing. And yes, I know I am late to the party on this one. All joking aside, this game and its sequels embody everything I love about the horror genre. But I will warn you, it can be a little too real with its topics at times. So this is your first and final content warning. We start with a title screen that is very easy on the eyes. Put in our name and start with something terrifying. Reading. This game is a visual novel, so unfortunately we have to do a lot of that, and I'm not happy about it. We start out with our main character counting her steps, then promptly forgetting how to walk for a bit, and it's up to us, the player, to remind her how to do so. Let's be honest with ourselves, though. Everyone here has forgotten how to do basic bodily functions at least once in your lifetime, and if you say you haven't, you're lying. As it turns out, we are not actually playing as the main character herself. We are playing as a disembodied voice that guides our main heroine because she just decides, and I quote, "I want this game to be a visual novel." Boy, fourth wall breaking depression is my favorite flavor. When we finally get some choices, we can be an absolute menace to the poor thing for some reason. Ouch! When our nameless main character gets to the store, we reach our second obstacle. A birdman that only speaks in the letter O.
Excuse me, what?
O.
Excuse me, what?
O. This goes on for a good while. Let's skip forward a bit for everyone's sanity. We tell her to stop now while she is ahead because she is going to start another loop, whatever that means. And she ignores us, and guess what? Another loop starts. Remember when I just said we would skip? I was kidding. We will be stuck here together until the end of time, just simply because I want you to regret clicking on this video. In order to stop the loop, she just simply repeats after the bird.
I gather all my will into a fist. Oh?
Oh! My interlocutor shook and crawled away. Boy, that was productive. Apparently, she is afraid of O's because of a vision she keeps on getting. And believes that the bird was doing it just to scare her. Yes, I know so far this has sounded random and ridiculous, but it does lead somewhere, I promise you. We finally go into the store after all of those distractions, and boy, the shop music is lovely and makes me want to keep my eardrums intact. Our mission is almost complete. We obtain the milk like any good Samaritan would, call visual novels lazy, then go to the hardest part of our journey. We have to pay for the milk. The cashier is a that and can barely form coherent sentences. Our girl gets understandably confused, and we have to remind her to pay for the milk. But the options are even more aggressive than usual this time. We will come back to those, though. Yes, I am skipping over a lot, but it will make more sense when we have more context. We pay for our bag of milk, and this is where the game starts to take a bit of a turn. She walks down the street, very distracted, and almost gets attacked by a bear. Makes sense, right? Yeah, I didn't think so. In truth, she almost gets hit by a truck. She asks you, why would anyone want her dead? And the choices seem off. This time I chose, you're sick, just to see what would happen, and game over. Let's restart. I think it should be obvious by now that something isn't right. We are missing a key piece of, well, everything. But let's go back to where we left off. Before going home, she makes a stop to talk with us at a park.
Listen, I'm a little embarrassed. I realize that I'm going crazy. The medications are becoming less and less effective, so ultimately, things will happen painlessly, I hope. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the world looks different to her because of the medications and trauma she has had to experience. The character we have been playing as is imaginary and created so she has someone to talk to, or maybe even a way to get her thoughts in order. As we continue talking, She explains that her father died in front of her, and because of that, the world has been permanently painted red in her eyes. It's hard to tell, but the image that we are seeing on screen is in fact his body. Another thing we are told is that we shouldn't try and figure out her diagnosis. After we finish our conversation, she goes back home with everything feeling fake and chaotic. She is starting to get more stressed than we have seen her so far. She gets into her apartment, and we are greeted by her mother. We have a very short conversation, all of which only involves them sharing a couple of words each, and that's where the game ends. See, I told you it would start to make sense. From the interactions at the end, it's very obvious that she doesn't have the best view of her mother, because she genuinely has the creepiest design in this game. Not to mention, the main character's cold reaction to her mother explains a lot. Okay, let's go back a bit and fill in the missing holes, shall we? Milk inside the bag is entirely from our main character's worldview, so it's safe to assume that the monsters we see are actually strangers just kind of doing their own thing. But there is a sense of isolation in that. God, this is starting to sound familiar. Since the character we play as is imaginary, I think the extremely aggressive options we can pick represent the thoughts that are always in the back of her head, and choosing said option usually leads to a game over. Then we are sent back to where we put in our names. Some have interpreted that the name we put in at the beginning is actually the name of the medications she's on, which makes sense considering the options you have to choose to avoid game overs. As for what the O represents, we have to wait until the sequel, because I actually don't fully know right now, and I will stall for as long as possible. Milk inside the bag is extremely short, but it manages to bring up a topic that isn't commonly touched on. It shows that the everyday chore of going to the store can be very difficult for a lot of people, especially when you are surrounded by anxieties and everything else the character is going through and has gone through. Let's take a bit of a breather before we go into the next game. You can tell, just from the music and style of this game, that it was heavily inspired by Yume Nikki, and I am down for it. It is especially evident when we look at the themes of each game. They are similar, yet different, you know? I love the style of this game. It only gets better with the sequel. Plus, it's like $1 on Steam, so do what you will with that info. Hint, hint. Alright, let's play Milk Outside a Bag of Milk Outside a Bag of Milk. We start out with a very lovely animated recap of the last game. Milk Outside takes place literally right after the first game. Our heroine goes to the kitchen in a panic with these shadowy figures around her. She finally builds up the courage to go in and has a very intimate moment staring at the bag of milk we got at the store. Right when she tries to leave the room, she gets stopped by her mother, restraining her and tightly holding onto her arm. The mother stabs her long claw of a finger into her arm and injects quote-unquote venom into our girl. We are left with the mother reprimanding her by forcing her to say, "I will never drink milk again." Hey, we actually get to see what the character looks like this time, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I love the art style so much. But let's back up a bit, because I don't think we will have a chance to talk about this again. Now, I don't think we are given all of the information in this scene, my chicken cutlets. I personally believe that she is having an allergic reaction to the milk, and the mom runs over to administer a shot, ergo the claw and its venom. It's implied that this happens very often from the bits of dialogue we see. However, from the main character's perspective, she doesn't understand why this is happening and views it as senseless violence towards her. But when we see her again, she doesn't exactly seem bothered by it. She just seems tired. After the encounter, she finds a reason to throw away the medicine that she was meant to take and attempts to go to sleep. Oh hey, a disembodied voice is back in the game! Yes! We are called upon once again to share our knowledge onto this world, which is apparently not meant to happen twice in one day. With a bit of conversation and a lot of convincing, she takes her pill for real this time and gets ready for the land of sleep once again. Of course, it's not that easy. She has to organize her thoughts first, and to do so, we have to visualize them physically. We suggest cockroaches, and she immediately shuts us down and makes some fireflies. Hey, how dare you? Cockroaches are cool, I guess. I mean, they're sort of neat. Anyways, she loses track of the fireflies and makes it our quest. Yes, ours, not hers, to find them again. Instead of a visual novel, it is declared to be a point-and-click adventure game this time. Yep, it is in fact. We have to search for the fireflies by clicking on literally everything. Not the mountain of milk, though. Why is that even there? After clicking on an item, we usually get banter or a story from our girl. The dialogue is surprisingly charming and fun until it isn't, because the fireflies are around more serious memories, some of which require a bit more of a push to actually get the story for. Since this one isn't as linear, let's talk about what we learn. In this game, we learn a lot more about her past. As it turns out, she might not have had the best family life. One of the main hints we get of this is in the dialogue from the backpack. Well, on top of everything else we have already established. But we get a bit about what her last day of school is like since she didn't graduate. At first, she says it was an insignificant day, but if we push a bit, we get a different story. She came out of school kicking and screaming when her dad came for pickup. On the way home, the father buys milk, and when they arrive, it's only the two of them, which seems to be a normal occurrence. When asked what happens next, she gets anxious, feeling as though someone is staring at her, and then avoids giving a direct answer. With her having a potential milk allergy, that would mean the dad kept giving it to her despite the issues. Not to mention, we already know she drinks it almost habitually. That also explains a bit more of why our main character doesn't like her mother, because it didn't seem like she was there for her when moments like this happened. I mean, this is all speculation, but there is definitely something going on here. The other thing we learn about her is that she used to draw quite often and went online regularly, even racking up a bit of a following. You guessed it! The situation turned sour fast. And I will explain more about that when we talk about the endings. I know I have been doing this a lot, but this is the last one. I swear it will be mentioned soon. Okay, let's talk about the endings. After collecting all of the fireflies, we tell each other goodbye because this is probably going to be the last time they talk. She says that she won't take the medicine again, then goes to sleep and has a dream for the first time in a while. The dream changes depending on what you do and how many fireflies you collect. The first one I got was basically a retelling of the first game with a new character we haven't seen before. We just kind of found my man on the street. Towards the end, he gets harassed by the people in the convenience store, and we leave angry, which makes complete sense. Those people were awful. This dream obviously has a lot of parallels to the original game, but this time it's more in a parent's perspective, which is an interesting detail. When she wakes up, we see another animated cutscene with her crying, then looking up towards the O we have been seeing a lot of recently. When I first saw this, I thought the O represented the sun and the moon. Her being scared of it shows how afraid she is to leave her house. But some have also compared it to a black hole and the fear of death. That's where the two games end. Before we wrap this up, let's talk about the other endings real fast. One of the endings require us to pick up a very hard-to-spot phone, and the dream has her venting to a pizza delivery service while walking into a train track without noticing. This one is directly related to what happened to her on the internet. See, I told you it would be fast. Because she wanted someone to confide in so much, she didn't think about the repercussions. And someone used this opportunity to dox and harass her off the internet permanently. One of the other endings has her stuck on these stairways and can't tell if she's going up or down. Taking the wording into account, I saw a few theories saying that this could represent therapy, or it could also represent how everything feels out of her control. Okay, we are almost there, just 2 more endings. In this one, our main character tries to reach a door, but is told off as soon as she gets close. And that brings us to a field where we see monsters and shadowy figures again. In this ending in particular, you see a lot of the panic and isolation that I mentioned earlier. The last ending is just her getting ready for school in the morning. It just kind of keeps repeating the same scene for a while, but the reflections get more intense and distorted with each repeat. I think this is trying to show how stressed she was to try and fit in when going to school and trying to be everything but herself. And I can imagine it didn't work as she intended it to. Okay, that's all. I have nothing bad to say about these games, really. They were short and managed to give so much information and personality in the short amount of time they had. Games like this are why I love horror games as a genre, because horror is able to bring up topics such as this in a way that nothing else can. A lot of times, there is meaning behind almost every spook and weird occurrence in these games. Well, not always, but you know what I mean. These type of games implore you to come up with your own theories and fill in the blank spots. Even if the creator didn't have much in mind for the original story, you can still get something special out of it. That being said, you can see the amount of care in the dialogue and art style in this game. Like, it's genuinely beautiful to see. That's exactly what makes it good. Also, yes, I know I skipped over a bit, and I know there are details I glossed over, but I'm not changing that. I was originally going to talk about my theories about this game, but I thought it would have been better to give you all of the main points and let you puzzle it together yourself. And that theory crafting is what makes horror special, my mangoes. Alright, I will shut up. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, if you want to, that is. I'm not your parent. And thank you all so much for the support recently. That came out of absolutely nowhere. You guys are awesome. Genuinely, thank you. But with that being said, that's all from me. I'll see you guys soon.